Hi, I'm Jeff with the Grateful Veteran. I want to let everybody know I had a blast on Dro TV with Mike. We talked about my first time and my first time. It's really fun. Mike's got a good thing going, and he's helping a lot of people with this. So I appreciate it. Smash the like button for Mike. Smash the like button for veterans. Peace, everyone. Smoke them if you got them, he says.
Welcome to My First Time, the show about your first time getting high on marijuana. I'm your host, Mike Freeman with Dro TV. Today, I'd like to welcome our guest, Jeff from the Grateful Veteran. What's happening, my friend?
What's up, brother? How are you doing? Hope everything's good.
I'm doing well, thank you. You can find more of Jeff on Facebook and Instagram, as well as thegratefulveteran.com, which I just suggest go there first because there's lots of great information about Jeff and his organization. Uh, you and your wife's organization.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure she's a big part of it, so I don't want to leave her out of it. But, Jeff, thanks for coming on the show today. Let everybody know where you're located and a little bit about Grateful Veteran.
For sure. So we're home ported. I'm a Navy guy. I did 20 years in the Navy, so we're home ported out of Cape Coral, Florida. But I do work all over the state. We've even been to the National Cannabis Festival in DC, and so I'm out and about, and I do a lot of different events, cannabis and non-cannabis events, because I like to talk to the general public about, you know, using cannabis as medicine. Uh, We've been in existence since 2018, and we've helped 500 or so veterans get their medical marijuana card, and we've paid their 77.75 state fee. So that's what I really try to do, is raise that money to make sure that they don't have to pay the state, and that I have relationships with doctors all over the state so that they'll see veterans for me when I need them to. And then that way a veteran can try cannabis and maybe be able to exit some sort of opioid that they're on, or some sort of pharmaceutical that can be replaced with cannabis, and with little to no money out of pocket. And we educate them about that along the way, the different modalities, the uses, dabbing, eating cannabis, ingesting not just edibles, but ingesting distillate. What's a dab? Is flour the right thing for you? Should you be using tinctures, adding CBD to your routine, things like that? So we try to educate the veteran and not just turn them out so that they're, oh man, now I can go to the store and get whatever I want, because, one bad experience leads to no more good experiences.
Sure.
Especially with aging population of veterans. I turned 56 on Sunday, and there's a whole group of veterans that are in the program, even older than I am, that really needs some education and can't just be, set free at at a, say a dispensary to buy whatever they might want to at will and have a bad experience. So I need a little bit of education, and I'm not trying to limit anybody in any aspect whatsoever. I talk about it all, so that they can kind of choose and understand what they're talking about when they go into dispensaries, because you don't want them to get lost in there. And that's what we do. We got a community partnership with FGCU. I speak out there on regular basis to the kids that go to the War on Drugs class, and they have a couple of cannabis career classes out there and a cannabis career certificate program. And I speak to those kids and try and spread the message of, breaking down the stigma of cannabis as a drug and not medicine, because, I'm a veteran. I care what people think about me still. So my choice of medicines you wouldn't like me if I was still stuck on opioids. I was just not the same person. Cannabis allows me to have that peace in my life, so I feel like the more I can do in public under the umbrella of a veteran cannabis organization, the more difference I can make in everyone's mind,
Yeah, absolutely. So Jeff, amazing organization. Definitely love what you have going on. I want to talk more about that, because I think veterans, not only are veterans important, and thank you for your service and everyone else that you've helped, in the cannabis community, but I do think it's a great way to help legalize and keep things legalized as some states try to tweak regulations and stuff like that. I think the veteran community is one of the strongest when it comes to being outspoken for cannabis, because you guys can go and do all these crazy things that could end up getting you killed. And then you come back here and it's like, well, I don't know that a plant, it might be too
Right.
dangerous for you.
Right.
So, the ridiculousness of the hypocrisy, I think, gets flaunted right in their face when a veteran like yourself
Right.
can speak up and say, well, I can get addicted to these painkillers and opioids, and you're okay with that. But all of a sudden, this natural thing that I can grow in the ground and either smoke or
Right.
consume or ingest. And I think what your organization doing is tremendous, and I want to get more into that. But the
Sure.
show is my first time, Jeff. So
Sure.
please, I know you said you got a good story. Maybe it's a great story.
Yeah.
Please tell us about your
So,
first time getting high.
so I come from a large family. So my mom has 12 brothers and sisters, and she's the oldest daughter. So when I was born, I'm only 7 years younger than my aunt.
Okay.
So I was like the extension of this 50s, 60s, 70s hippie group. I was born in 66. So I
Okay.
just felt right in line with that. And by the time I was in junior high, I I didn't know that everybody's family didn't smoke weed. I just thought it was a thing. I mean, I had been exposed to bags, gigantic grocery sacks full. I had an uncle that was doing weekends because he was running some back and forth, and it was at like a family picnic, and everybody came from inside, and the smell of the marijuana, you could smell it. So I just went in and snagged up a couple of the leftovers in the ashtray and gathered up I have 52 cousins, so I gathered up the ones that were running around my middle school age, and we went around the corner and blazed a couple of remnants. And that was my first time, but that was the first time I really used cannabis. The weed, just smoking weed, like, oh wow, I'm smoking weed.
Right. Right.
But I didn't find it that it was like oh, like so super exhilarating in my mind, because I had seen it done so much that it wasn't like, I just thought it was a normal thing. I knew everybody had a good time with it. I knew it was taboo just because of the way people acted around it. So that was the interesting part. But I smoked weed all through high school, into college, joined the Navy, abstained from cannabis for 20 years because it's illegal. Came home. In the last 3 years, I had, I don't know, 4 ankle reconstructions. I've had my shoulder replaced, my right bicep's been torn and repaired. I've had my left hand, wrist reconstructed, and a bunch of metal in my hand taken out. Just, I've had a whole bunch of surgeries, and they were in such a sequential order that I really never was able to come off of opioids before my next surgery. So it was just piling up on top of each other. By the time I had retired from the Navy, I was on 120 milligrams of morphine and 80 milligrams of Oxycontin on a daily basis, plus 6 milligrams of Klonopin and all kinds of PTSD medication to keep my mood stabilized. And I was on 4 shots for diabetes because I was 100 pounds heavier. I was on blood pressure medication. I was on all this shit. And my cousin, who was 5 when I joined the Navy, he wasn't one that I smoked with way back when I was a kid. He was
Yeah.
5 when I joined the Navy. Now he's 25 when I get back, right? And he says to me, I don't know what you're doing, but you're killing yourself, because he comes over to visit, and I'm doing the whole heroin dope head not out.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're killing yourself eating all these opioids. You need to smoke some dro. That's his exact words. You need some dro, bro. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I bet you know how many pills you have. Like, he went through this whole thing. And in my mind, I'm making these mental checklists like, yeah, but in my words, I'm saying, get out of my house. Don't talk to me like that. I'm not smoking weed. I had no real grasp on cannabis as medicine. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Just did a little bit of research, found some articles. This is in 2008. Found some articles from Israel, real powerful about opioid and cannabis use in combination. He brought me some dro. He's like, I'll get you the best I can get, that the best hydro I can get. And I started using cannabis. Um, and that very first inhalation, exhalation moment, that moment was the whoosha. I felt it come over my body like, oh my God, I can get some relief without it was like someone not telling me, but I just felt a wave of hope come over my body because I knew I had these problems with opioids because I wasn't using them correctly. That's why I told him to get out, because everything he was saying, I was checking off in my mind. I mean, I was chewing them up, grinding them up. You
Yeah.
know, I was doing whatever I could do to maintain that level without being sick, without being in pain. And I was never really out of pain. Plus, I was constipated. So for me to start using cannabis and be able to cut my opioids in half was like mind blowing to me. And I went straight to the doctor. I was seeing a captain in the Air Force at Scott Air Force Base at the time, and I went in and told him, I said, "Listen, I want to come off of all the pain medication that I'm on, and I want to use medical marijuana to do it." It was right when Illinois was voting in medical marijuana. I didn't even qualify with all the conditions that I have.
Huh.
He said, "Oh my God, I don't think we can do it." And I handed him 2 months worth of medicine back, like just all these pills that was able to stop. I mean, literally, I cut my medication in half immediately when I started smoking weed again for the first time. That's my first time story. You know, first time when I was a
What was
kid.
his reaction when you gave him all those pills back?
He was flabbergasted, and my response to that was like, listen, we can do this as long as you don't write it in my record, because at that time the VA was still not cool with veterans using cannabis, whether you were in a cannabis friendly state or not. The VA was still not down with it. I'm 100% disabled, and I was seeing the Air Force doctor because I'm retired from the Navy as well. So I did 20 years, and so I get that benefit. And I just told him, I said, listen, I need to do this. I'm killing myself. And I'll do whatever blood work tests you want me to do, whatever it might be. Because I think there's other medication that I'm going to be able to come off of. And I really wish that we would have been able to keep in contact after that. The problem with those guys is they get moved out, you know, rather quickly on a 2-year basis. So we had a short term relationship. And then I just went to another doctor and just didn't talk about it anymore and kept going with what I was doing and cutting my opioids in half. And by 2010, I was done with opioids. And I've had surgeries and whatnot since, and had taken some pain medication, for a period of 1, 2 days maybe, and have no problems putting that away. And I know, and I used to tell my doctors I'm addicted, and they're like, "No, you're just over medicated." So then I said, "Okay, well, I'm over medicated and I'm under treated, because nobody cares what they just throw more medicine at me.
Yeah.
That's not a treatment plan. That's medicating me, and you're medicating me to death. I'm killing myself on these things, and you don't understand. And I don't want to go to a rehab center and have that label on top of, oh, he's a cannabis user, and now he's from rehab in cannabis. And I had just read too much and thought too highly of my own self and my own ability to push my medicines to the right. And I would actually, it used to be like when I was on opioids, I was on a 2-hour schedule. Like, man, I got to get back home because it's time for me to eat them, or I'm eating them on the road. You know what I mean? And then trying to get back home. Crazy. That's legal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I started consciously pushing that 2-hour window to a 4-hour window, and I would use cannabis in between to see if I could get the relief I needed to extend that. And if I extended to the next 2 hours, then I half dosed myself. You know what I mean? And then I was able to break that sickness, that opioid sickness, down over a longer period of time, just by being strong in my head mentally and using cannabis. Because honestly, cannabis fought the sickness as well, so it made it much easier for me to exit. And since then, I 4 shots for diabetes, all my blood pressure medication, um, all my PTSD medication, everything other than one. I take one oral pill because I was such a brittle diabetic for so long that I still have some blood sugar issues, but I'm in the control range now, and I lost 100 pounds. I'm like 7 pounds heavier than I was in high school right now.
Wow. That's
Yeah, and I think cannabis, man. I was taking 15 pills in the morning, 9 pills at lunch, 13 pills at dinner, with 4 shots for diabetes all day long. And I think my body was so full of pharmaceuticals that I wasn't processing anything right. I just got to be a big fat blob.
mm,
And on top of that, the opioids, make you live a sedentary lifestyle. You just don't
sure. Yeah.
do
You
much.
don't want
And
to do anything.
I wasn't in the right mind space for a period of time because of all that medication, to go out and be in the public, because I wasn't very nice. Uh, I didn't care who was around if something went wrong. And cannabis gives me that. And like I'm gonna tell everybody, I'm not completely out of pain using cannabis either, but it puts me in a different state of mind, and it knows that I know I can get relief from it enough to where I can still carry out my day. And I have great days. My days are great. So I owe it all to cannabis, I think. I have T-shirts that have a big American flag, cannabis leaf on the front, and the back says "Cannabis saves lives," and
Mm,
that's really, my wife's a nurse, and cannabis. Without those two things, I don't think I'd still be around. If I if I was on that amount of medication in 2008, I can't imagine where I'd be right now. I'm sure I would be seeking street drugs. The way I was abusing the pharmaceuticals. And they know that after. I don't even blame the doctors, but now everyone knows that after 3 days of opioid use, you have an addiction quality to that, and it's something that you can't control. You know what I mean? It chemically alters your brain and the way that you think, and it's still happening today. I'm still helping veterans that are coming home with full of opioids, because they treat them for pain, you know, and they don't talk about cannabis use to veterans that are, like, say if you're in North Carolina and you're leaving the service and you're like, well, I'll just stay here in North Carolina, or you can move to Virginia where cannabis is legal and use cannabis. They don't tell them about that.
right.
They don't tell them that the VA says it's okay. You know what I mean? They just let them go ahead and get out there and figure it out on their own. Fortunately, there's a bunch of organizations like myself scattered around the country that they might be able to Google something on veterans cannabis use and come up with somebody doing something in an area and get pointed in the right direction towards me, or Balanced Veterans Networks, or there's a whole bunch of them. So that gives me hope. But until they make rule changes and really stand up and say, hey, look, you can do this with, if you go to a cannabis friendly state, and let a veteran really have a choice about whether or not he wants to get stuck in that pharmaceutical hole, that then we're talking about real change and acceptance. And that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, a lot of what brought me, I've been a cannabis user for over 20 years, but a lot of what brought me to start Dro TV is building a community and a network. But the freedom that comes with cannabis, what is more free than taking seeds, growing a plant, using that plant, whether it's for recreational or medicinal benefits. uh,
Totally.
I know people still say, well, we don't have enough studies. We have anecdotal, if they are. There's plenty of real world studies. I can tell you what's happened to me. You just told me what's happened to you. Is that
Listen,
a typical scientific medical study? No, it's not. But
so there are plenty of veterans that don't like to use cannabis, that don't want to use cannabis, but they do like to grow vegetables. And how do you think those veterans would feel about growing cannabis for veterans who do use cannabis? How empowering
Right.
for them, or for a veteran to grow his own cannabis and share with another veteran. So as a veteran, when I disconnected from the military in the state of mind that I was and on the amount of medication that I was, I disconnected. I didn't have friends that I kept up with. I didn't tell my stories about anything. I was in a hole and I didn't know how to get out of it. Cannabis gave me that hope. I lost connection with that. And so many veterans lose that connection with other veterans, that camaraderie that we crave so much, that team building that we crave so much. And cannabis does all that, right?
Sure.
And like, so for a long time, I was even in therapy. Cannabis provides that. So it's a very empowering moment when you're taking your flower and breaking it down, right? You're watching it move and fall into, it kind of melts into a place and you get to play with it, it's sticky to the stem. And that gives me chills to talk about it because it brings me to a place where I know I'm going to medicate and feel better in a minute, right? It's like foreplay almost, it gets you to,
Sure.
it gets all your senses are wound up because you're smelling it, seeing it, touching it, you know, it's sticky to your finger, putting it in your cone or however you use it, and it brings you to a level that's empowering because I used to have grocery sacks full of stuff that I would have to prepare, put some shots in the refrigerator, fill my 30-day pill planner, and all
Mhm.
that bullshit to eat all them pharmaceuticals. So it's really empowering to take that little flower and break it down. Now, to be able to bring that camaraderie back around to cannabis, the plant, it cannabis is a community. Whether you want that community or not, the people that talk about cannabis share information and naturally grow a community. And that's what veterans miss. And they really enjoy that part of cannabis because for me to share my information about, yeah, I do dabs in the morning. And they're like, what? You dab in the morning? Well, you just have to know how to dab, what to dab, and how much to dab. And yeah, you can dab in the morning and I lift myself to a level before I go anywhere because I don't want to have a bad day. And so when you start sharing that kind of stuff, that camaraderie comes right back together. And people want to say, "Oh, it's the community, cannabis community." Well, yeah, it is. That's what it is. It provides a community for people, like-minded people, to get together and discuss how this has helped or even saved their lives. That's
Jeff,
it to me. It's just that simple. And when I started figuring that out and pushing my medicine to the side, it brought me more and more to the front of just using cannabis in public, just respectfully using cannabis in public, not like, walking by a cop smoking a joint or in a family crowd or anything like that. But I didn't go around the corner. I didn't go around the corner by the trash can and go over there and smoke a little bit. I just did it like if we were at a public event or a party, I just did it. You know what I mean? Some people are like, hey, that smells great, and then all of a sudden everybody's like kind of, just I feel like if you treat it like nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong. You know what I mean? I'm not doing anything wrong to anyone else. I just try to have my words prepared for me in case there's that time that, you know, I'm approached or whatever. I did 20 years in the Navy. I can speak on an intelligent level and get my point across without being irate. And that's why my logo is red, white, and blue. That's why I do these American flag or veteran friendly cannabis art, is because I care what people still think about me. So I want to use cannabis in a respectful way so that people understand that, it's not the devil's lettuce. Only jazz musicians and jazz singers and
yeah,
people
yeah,
that listen to the jazz music that want to, it's not about that because there are fine, upstanding young men and women who've served valiantly in the United States military who need this, and it helps them a lot. And they don't have to use it. Everybody's different. So it's not like you have to be medicated everyone has to be medicated all day. It all depends on what you need. And there are different ways to medicate yourself. You don't have to just walk around smoking joints. I prefer this. It gives me the most head to toe, in my mind, filling it up. That I like the taste of it. It's the most traditional way. So, people have been smoking things amongst each other for a long time. There's something about smoke. It even calms down bees. So let's just say that, something about smoking something, there's something to that.
Sure.
And I think there's less harm than there is, less harm than smoking cigarettes, obviously. But I think the worst thing that happens is maybe you get a little bit of esophageal irritation or something from coughing. But for the most part, there's way more benefit to it than harm.
Jeff, what are you smoking on? What you got rolled up there?
This is Jaeger, some Jaeger. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
nice.
I just smoked one from I got to visit Cookies.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to them. It was a nice experience to go into a front store, like their California kind of edgy store. They had the sight glass sniff, so you could look at it and twist it and smell in it, and you could see the crystals and stuff on the marijuana. And the bud tenders were like dressed in all their cookies wear, and just like it was a real chill environment. And while you're shopping, he's telling you about the terpene profile, and which was a good experience. Didn't feel like I was in, oh, go here, you've got to go here. Like when the Florida marijuana program first opened up, it was ridiculous. Couldn't even have flower. But so now to be able to go in there and a guy's just walking around taking your order, and they got pictures on the wall of all this really nice weed, and you don't even really have to. He's your bud tender, and he stays with you until your order's done, and then they call your name and you go pick it up. It was really a pleasant experience. And I visited the Flowery, another new dispensary over there. And their Florida cannabis products are up in their game. The Flowery's got some just fire cannabis right now, and I bought I don't know how many different strains of pre rolls, maybe six, and every one of them was on top. And not they were rolled right. They didn't canoe. Sometimes back in early days it was brutal. But they weren't overground or anything. They smoked well. So I'm just plugged those two dispensaries right away because recently that it's been a refreshment to go into a couple of new places like that. People
Awesome.
doing business a little bit differently as things progress on.
Yeah, great. Um, we got a couple minutes left here, Jeff. I
Sure.
want to ask you, what would you like to see happen in the state of Florida to make it easily and more accessible to, I guess, not just veterans, because there's other people that.
Yeah, sure,
Uh,
sure.
what would you like to see happen
I,
in the state of Florida to make things progress more quickly here?
I think if you release home.
Hey everybody, I want to quickly mention food forest abundance. Food forest abundance is a great way to create your own self-sustaining food forest and naturally occurring ecosystem that's commonly found in nature, but designed specifically for you. Through multiple layers of trees, shrubs, herbs, vines, rhizomes, mushrooms, and perennial vegetables, you can become your own supply chain without the typical maintenance required of a garden. From small spaces to large areas, both urban and suburban, Food Forest Abundance wants us to get back to our roots in nature by engaging with our food production in a meaningful way. For more information, click on the link in the description below and start your journey today. Okay, let's get back to today's episode.
Home grow, right? If you let people grow their own, that's very empowering, to grow your own vegetables and eat your own food and stuff like that. And it brings people together. And there's nothing, I mean, if the plant's legal, listen, I got a bunch of friends that have grown marijuana over the years, and only a few of those friends would I say I enjoy using their cannabis at all because it wasn't done right.
Right.
But there's something about being able to do it.
Sure.
People want to be able to do it. And it's to me, it's a no harm, no foul, really, because nobody's going to like grow enough to make a dent in the already over marketed Florida cannabis industry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like they're going to be able to, okay, I'm opening up my private farm and going to distribute all of Florida, just take it over. It's not going to happen. So why not? That's just my view. I'd like to see some things like on veterans, they're trying to make a couple things where you don't have to pay your state fee, or no state fee for veterans. That would be cool. Or you don't have to visit the doctor if you're a veteran, but once every 2 years instead of once, every 7 months or something. There's a couple of bills that they're looking at to try and make changes like that. But, I feel like access, like you said, access is key. The wider the access, the more people that you have that have access will use it, and they'll talk about it. And when they talk about it, that word spreads. Like your Dro TV spreads that word. People listen and they go, "Oh man, wow, yeah, for sure, I'm down with it. I'm totally on board. I get it." And I like to go to non-cannabis events and tell my story about opioids and cannabis and watch people's reaction, because I want them to understand. Don't judge me for my choice of medicine, because if I was on what the government had me on, you wouldn't like me. You wouldn't want to stand here and listen to me, because I look like this all the time. And then I was like this, and it didn't take me very long to be like that, and that was just no place for me, because I don't know, you feel me. I have a kind heart. I want to be a good person. And those opioids and pharmaceuticals just weren't the right thing.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks, man. I really
About
appreciate
your
it.
organization. If you're going to Cannabis in Mount Dora, November?
I am. I'll be there.
Okay.
Yep.
We're going to be there set up as well. So we'll definitely have
Awesome.
to connect. We're going to be recording more interviews. So maybe we can
Sure.
continue with, because I certainly have more questions about what
Sure.
your organization and stuff like that. So
Yeah, anytime, Mike. I'll help you out, whatever you need.
awesome. Jeff, thanks again. Let everybody know where they can find more of you.
So email thegratefulveteran@gmail. My website's The Grateful Veteran. I'm on Facebook, The Grateful Veteran, and I'm on Instagram, The Grateful Veteran _OG. Give me a shout out. If you know a veteran that needs cannabis in their life and they're in the state of Florida, get them in touch with me. I'll find them a doctor and we'll get them set up so that they can start on a path of wellness.
Yes. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go down there and smash the like button for Jeff.
Smash it.
If you're a veteran, leave a comment. Let myself and Jeff know if you're a current cannabis user or if you would like to become one, and maybe Jeff can help you down that path. Reach out to Jeff, leave a comment. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you got to make sure you go down and subscribe, because otherwise you would miss great guests,
all this
amazing interviews like this one here with Jeff. So I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you again for coming on Dro TV. That's it for today. And as always, smoke them if you got them.
The smoking lamp is lit throughout the ship.
What's up, Dro TV family? You can now stream the audio version of all these episodes on your favorite podcast player. And if you like more episodes like this, check out this playlist we put together over here for you. And if you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube. You don't want to miss more great content from Dro TV. Thank you for tuning in, and as always, smoke them if you got them.